Hello and thank you for joining us. I'm Rachel McCormack, the founder of Societi, the UK Foundation for Kawasaki Disease. I'm delighted today to be joined by Corey Walks. He is a world recognised athlete, a specialist in his field of gymnastics and trampolining. We're also joined by Corey's mum, and the reason for them joining us today is when Corey was a baby, Pippa knew something was terribly wrong with her little boy, and it turned out to be Kawasaki disease. That's not held him back. Corey is an absolute inspiration, and I'm really looking forward to chatting with him and to Pippa about their journey from Kawasaki disease to world champion. So, Corey, we're all excited to hear from you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So my name's Corey. I'm 23 years old and I represent the country in trampoline gymnastics. And I get to compete all across the world, so it's super exciting. I grew up in a small village just outside of Bath called Radstock as the youngest of 5 children. So I've got 3 sisters and a brother, where I participated in pretty much every sport when I was younger. I was like super energetic and excitable. I could get my hands on stuff like rugby, swimming, taekwondo. I've always loved sport and trying to be the best at everything I can do. I reckon probably a bit of a trait from being the youngest sibling.
Well, I'm giggling listening to you. I'm a middle sibling, so yes, I recognise those characteristics in my younger sibling. And you mentioned there, lots and lots of sport. You progressed, didn't you, getting into trampolining of all things? Tell us how that began.
Yeah, so at the age of 6, I climbed up onto our garden trampoline. It was super tall back then when I was younger. Me and my sister used to love to play around on it all the time. Eventually, I grew up the confidence to like throw a backflip. And my mum was watching out the corner of her eye. I think she was a little bit nervous, and she was so scared that I might fly off the trampoline onto the floor or do something dangerous. That from there, I sort of went to my first lesson in our local school. And then from there, pretty much that's where my career began. I did my first competition, and then a couple of years later was representing the national team at a World Championships.
That's astonishing. And yeah, Pippa, I was watching your face when you were remembering, I'm sure, that very first backflip and your heart in your mouth. I'm absolutely sure. But of course, it wasn't a straight line, was it, from young Corey bouncing on the trampoline through to that time that actually so many of our listeners will, I'm sure, they will recognise.
Yeah, well, he was about 2.5 when he first became really unwell. I quickly knew that the illness was different to anything he'd had before. We saw several doctors over a matter of days. Some thought he had a virus and sent him home, and one thought he had measles. But the last doctor we saw admitted him with suspected meningitis, and that was pretty scary. And on the 10th day of him being really poorly in hospital with a very high temperature, a doctor from Great Ormond Street Hospital was visiting where we were staying and came to see us to give us some advice. And she thought it was either a form of arthritis or possibly Kawasaki's disease, which we'd never heard of. And they'd started him on a course of intravenous immunoglobulin as a precautionary. She then the next day organised a heart scan over at Bristol Children's Hospital, where they then confirmed that he had coronary artery aneurysms caused by Kawasaki's disease. And it was a pretty scary time. And they explained to us that giving immunoglobulin as early as possible is the best way to protect the heart from Kawasaki's disease, but that we wouldn't know the full damage until they scanned him over several weeks and months later. Further heart scans showed narrowing where the aneurysms had healed. A year later, he was recalled and had a procedure at Bristol Children's Hospital to repair the blood vessels in his heart. And we never dreamt that Corey would ever take part in any sports after being so poorly, but he tried everything. He was swimming for the local team. He started boys artistic gymnastics, as well as trampoline gymnastics and DMT, which is double mini trampoline. He was playing rugby. He was fencing. He did taekwondo. So I can really say that Kawasaki's disease hasn't held him back, which we are really thankful for.
My goodness, when you say he tried everything, he really tried everything.
Absolutely.
Goodness.
Absolutely.
That's That's incredible. Well, thank you so much for sharing that journey. I think there's quite a few things there that so many of our families will really resonate with them. The fact that you knew right at the beginning something wasn't right. That's something we hear from our families so often. You just know, your instinct is that this isn't something you've seen before, and your child is very, very poorly. But also that you've never heard of it before. My goodness, it's part of what we do as a charity is to raise awareness, because it's really difficult as a parent, isn't it, to spot something when you don't know what it is. You've never heard of it before, you've not come across it. So that's part of the mission that we're on, to get it known, and your story today is helping with that. And also that you found it so scary. I think everybody who's faced Kawasaki disease, mum, dad, carer, that's a sentiment where that's a shared journey that we've all been on. That fear of just not knowing where this path's going to take your child. But my goodness, Corey, you literally bounced out of the other side of it, didn't you? So having done all of those sports, you settled on trampolining. Tell us a bit more about gymnastics and trampolining.
Yeah, so I first started my trampoline lessons. Obviously, went to a competition at my local school when I was 6 years old. And I think what really stuck to me about trampolines, I just had a love for learning loads of new skills and just seeing how high I could jump. Obviously, I was like so young at the time. But ultimately, like, I just had so much fun playing around and trying to test my limits with the trampoline. So trampoline wasn't really a career that I thought of until I watched the 2012 Olympics in London, and I got to see what the world's best were capable of. I think a lot of people don't really know that trampoline is an Olympic sport, especially back then. But for me, that was when the sport really came alive. It wasn't until I was 12 years old I went to my first international in Amsterdam with my mum came with me, and I think my dad came with me as well. And I was so nervous, like obviously a little 12-year-old. I was stood in this queue with a bunch of like people that are way bigger than me. And I'm sure mum's got some photos that we're going to show, but I climbed onto this massive trampoline, presented, and I was just like shaking. But at the same time, I was so excited to just be able to show what I could do and be around people from all different countries. I had a really good time at that competition. I actually ended up crashing in the final, which was a bit embarrassing, but it got me over that fear of competing internationally. And then later on in that year, I went on to represent the national team for the first time in Bulgaria at the World Championships, which is I qualified in the final in third place, and I got super excited in the final. You should have seen me before. I was like, oh, I'm really going to go for it, and then ended up falling off in the final. But as much as that was sort of a failure to me at the time, I think that moment, coming so close and understanding how close I was to being up there with the world's best, probably what spurred my career on into the future, because from then I just really wanted to see how far I could push my capabilities.
So an absolutely incredible start, my goodness, at such a young age to be competing internationally. Tell us about some of your other achievements.
So some of my proudest achievements in my career over the years probably were I was under 17s European men's individual silver medalist, and also we won the team silver medal in that competition. That's probably my first major medal alongside my teammates, which was a massive thing for me. And then going on into 2023, we were men's team world bronze medalists, and that was actually at a home world championships in Birmingham, which was like a massive moment. And that was our Olympic qualifier. And then going on to last year was men's synchronized trampoline European champions. So synchronized trampoline we both jump at the same time with my synchro partner. And then luckily after that Europeans, I was announced as one of the Paris 2024 reserves. So I'd been returning from a really long stint of injury in and off, dealing with back injuries, ankle injuries. So it's almost pushed me out of the running to be able to qualify for the Olympics myself. But I was really proud to have returned to a place where I was trusted to be the reserve for the Paralympic Games.
So many achievements, Corey, and most of that before you were even 20. That's just absolutely astonishing. So who has influenced you most? Who have you looked to as a role model throughout your career?
So my career in terms of competitive international gymnastics really took off when I moved to Quayside Trampoline Gymnastics Club, which was originally high flyers in a small club in Cheddar before, until we moved to our own facility in Bridgewater. And that's probably where I met sort of the most influential people in my trampoline career. Firstly, I would say my personal coach and mentor, Sue Bramble. She's guided me through my competitive international career from when I was 12 years old up until now. She's still going at it. And she's always championed me mixing my sport career with everything else that I've aspired to do in my life. Probably say my second, probably Laura Gallagher, who is a 2021 Tokyo Olympian. She was my training partner from when I was 12 years old, from when I moved to high flyers, and probably seeing Laura overcome all the things she's had to overcome in her career to reach that end goal of going to an Olympics, and everything that meant to her and meant to us as a team, was really something that just like spurred me on to know that it was possible when I've had hard times in my career. And also she's just been there by my side, giving me advice here and there whenever I need it.
So some remarkable people shadowing you really and supporting you, as you say, and of course Mum has been there every step of the way as well. But I'm sure that there's been times in your career when things have been tough and physically it's been demanding. How do you stay motivated, Corey?
Motivationally has been really tough at times. I honestly, like, I wouldn't say that through my whole career. And I think it's almost a misconception with professional athletes that it's like for your whole career, you're super motivated every day in, day out. There's been days where I've felt no motivation whatsoever. And it's just sort of been a drive to just get in and get past the day and carry on no matter how I feel. And I think I really take that quality from my parents, especially my mum used to take me to training day in, day out. She'd drive me all the way to Bridgewater, to Cheddar, back and forth, no matter how she felt. And my dad's always gone to work every day just to make sure that I can do the things that I wanted to do, especially when I was younger. So I wouldn't say I put too much emphasis on motivation, but I would say I think for me, like I've experienced a lot of years of injuries that I've had to overcome. And some of them were potentially career ending when I went through them, with like problems with my back and problems with my ankle. And that kind of framed my career as I've got older and become a senior athlete. I think now I just really appreciate all the opportunities that I get given. Like I get to travel the world to do my sport, which, like, as much as it's super stressful and intense, and everyone's trying to achieve these things and achieve these goals, like I'm so blessed to be able to do what I do, and to be able to meet loads of people and push myself to my limit. Also, what motivates me a lot is my teammates and being able to have those shared experience with them, especially in being a Paris 2024 reserve. I got to watch some of my best friends like live out their dreams on the Olympic stage, and I got to be there right in the audience watching them do it. And I think that just motivates me for when my time will hopefully come in the future.
Well, it's pretty clear to me, and I'm sure it is to everybody listening, that moment is around the corner, Corey. No two ways about that. But you touched on periods of injury and bad days. Have there been any barriers in your career? Does Kawasaki disease featured as a challenge that you've had to face?
So sort of as I've grown up, I think some of the onsets from the Kawasaki disease that I wouldn't say I've noticed, but over time we've realized were actually symptoms of having Kawasaki's when I was younger. For example, when I get really stressed, I get super peely hands, is as one of them, that we've noticed over time. But I would say probably the biggest barriers to some of the successes I've had in my career is I had a prolapsed disc in my spine, which pushed on my spinal nerves, which meant I couldn't like bend forward for a very long time, and obviously you need to get into deep shapes on the trampoline to be able to perform. And that injury was recurring for around 4 years. I'm really fortunate that I've had such a great team of sports science, medicine guys all around me, spurring me on. So I'm really grateful for the people that I have around me for helping me overcome those barriers. And I'm also really grateful for myself to just stick in there and carry on and get to where I am now, where I can sort of manage that. I would say I've been able to overcome it through the perseverance and just constantly trying to find new ways and new different ways to solve problems. And I think that's what's made me be able to be a level of successful that I've got it to so far, but hopefully still spurring on into the future.
So much achieved, so much overcome, so many hurdles, more than dealt with along the way. But what's ahead? What does the future hold?
So I'm currently studying business management and economics at UE in Bristol. So I've tried to do that alongside my career in sport. I'm on my final year, my final months of my degree. So it's really like hunkering down now and getting it done. But once I've done that, I think I'm planning on just fully focusing on my time that I have left in trampoline. Sports careers obviously don't last forever, and I've definitely got another 4 years now to just focus on trying to qualify for that LA. Obviously, my dreams go to an Olympics and win medals, but my dream's also to get as many moments on the way there as I possibly can so that I can really walk away from my career saying that I gave it all. And no matter what the outcome is, I'll be satisfied and happy that I know myself that I gave everything I could. So I'm sort of hoping to move up to Liverpool. I'll bed in with my synchro partner and my training partner up there. And then we're going to sort of just put our heads down and focus on that goal of getting to LA Olympics together and experiencing all of that.
If you were speaking directly to your 6-year-old self, or young people who are crazy about sport, maybe tried loads of things and maybe tried trampolining, what advice would you give them?
I would probably say my advice for anyone trying to get into competitive sport or trying to pursue a career in sport is just to not be afraid of dreaming big. And then on top of that, dreaming even bigger on top of that. I think there really is no limits to what you can achieve. And just enjoying the process of learning through failure. I think a lot of people get discouraged really early on when they have barriers or have problems that they need to overcome. But it's sort of you realize what you're capable of when you overcome those things, even more so than when you achieve certain stuff. And they're just as important as winning medals and going and experiencing things. I think our family's always championed the phrase that you can do anything you want if you put your mind to it. And I think that's such an important thing to give to especially younger people who maybe feel lost in the world or get stuck on social media and look at other people's lives and think, oh, why can't I do that? Like everyone's living these amazing lives. And I think it's important to make sure everybody knows like everyone has to start somewhere. And if you really want to achieve something or you want to go after something in your life, you can really achieve anything.
Perhaps some young people who've been affected by Kawasaki disease will be listening to you. If you were speaking direct to them, what would you say, and what advice would you give them, or what else would you share?
I think that it's so important just to know that you're not alone with what you're going through. And there's so much you can achieve despite having Kawasaki's disease and experiencing some of the things that come from Kawasaki's disease. And I think it's so important to be part of the community together and that everyone can share our experiences. So you don't feel like you're alone in what you're going through because it can be really tough at times. And it can also be amazing at times when you get to overcome those barriers and go on to achieve things in your life.
Thank you, Corey. I'm going to give the last word to Mum. Seems only right. There'll be lots of parents listening, I'm sure, that be really keen to understand how you turned that situation, maybe in your mind, from a dark journey to a series of opportunities, and supported Corey to the grown man and phenomenal athlete and champion that he is today. So, Pippa, last words.
Yeah, I think, when Corey was so poorly when he was so young and the awareness just wasn't there 20 odd years ago. What you're doing with Society is incredible. I wish the parents who are going through it now are so fortunate to have the awareness and all the information that you have now that we didn't have back then. So with Corey and us being involved now is a real give back. Your child will recover, and there is that support out there for it. And with Corey, we never dreamt that he'd be doing what he is doing now, and he constantly surprised us. But I think with any child, you just have to give them the opportunity to do whatever they want. We never pushed Corey into doing sports. He just happened to be quite natural at doing things, and we made sure that his education went alongside it. And we just gave him the opportunities to do it. I mean, he is the youngest of 5, so it's not been an easy journey to get him to do all those things. But I think you know, just with children in general, just give them the space to be who they can be, and you never know where it's going to take you. He's living proof that you can do anything you want to if you put your mind to it, as we've said. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Corey. My goodness, thank you, Pippa. What an exceptional story. What an incredible series of achievements. And from a starting point with Kawasaki disease and a very difficult time for the family, I'm sure there were points in that journey when what's being achieved by Corey today just seemed so far from possible. You're an absolute inspiration, Corey. Thank you so much indeed to you both. There's lots of information about Kawasaki disease on the Society website, and if there's any questions been raised through the course of the conversation today that you'd like answers to that we haven't answered here, please go to the website or contact us. There's a form on the website and get in touch. We're always here for a conversation about Kawasaki disease. We're always here to help. Thank you once again for listening, for joining us and for supporting our work. Your support makes the difference between getting Kawasaki disease known and protecting children's hearts. Thank you.